Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this afternoon's Brahma Kumari's public program entitled Time for Healing. In the midst of a pandemic, how do we carry on with more confidence than fear? Deep inside each one is a wellspring of strength, accessible in a few easy steps. It guarantees a more relaxed mind that is better equipped to care for the body. Let's pause for a minute of silence. You must be wondering what Brahma Kumaris is.
Sister Krebi.
To tell us more about Brahma Kumaris,
Om Shanti, Sister Krebi.
yes, sister.
May we request, do you have another device on? Like, do you have two devices on?
Yes.
So you need to turn off
Yes,
your
Sister
Facebook,
Maggie.
turn it off. So we're not getting any
Okay.
feedback.
It,
Thank you.
it's now okay? Okay now?
Yes.
Thank you, Sister Maggie. You must be wondering what a Brahma Kumaris is. To tell us more about Brahma Kumaris, let's welcome Sister Nancy.
Brahma Kumaris Philippine Spiritual Foundation Incorporated, or Brahma Kumaris for short, was established in the Philippines in 1985 and the recipient of the United Nations Peace Messenger Award in 1987. The Brahma Kumaris is a non-sectarian, non-stock, non-profit organization who welcomes people from all walks of life of any religion, race, or creed. Through meditation, Brahma Kumaris seeks to help people rediscover their goodness from within and encourage the development of spiritual awareness, attitude, and behavior. Brahma Kumaris meditation courses and spiritual programs are offered in over 8,000 centers across the countries, 130 countries. The spiritual headquarters is located in Mount Abu, Rajasthan, India, which has a general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. It has also consultative status with UNICEF. The Brahma Kumaris is affiliated to UN Department of Public Information. Brahma Kumaris Philippines is a recipient of the UN Peace Messenger Award. It has 30 years of service as a spiritual university. Most courses at the BK or Brahma Kumaris are offered for free as a service to the community. However, voluntary contributions are welcome for the upkeep of facilities and amenities. And Brahma Kumaris Balangay Butuan Study Place is located in Manga Road, Butuan City. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Sister Nancy. We are encouraging our viewers to write their questions in the chat box because later, after our guest speakers talk, we'll be entertaining questions that she will be answering. To move on, to introduce our special guest resource speaker is our Nanay, sister, who is the coordinator for Mindanao of Brahma Kumaris. She is a meditation practitioner for 35 years and based in Tagum City at Peace Villa Brahma Kumaris Center. Help me welcome Sister Shanti.
Greetings of peace and good afternoon. Our guest for today is Sister Denise Lawrence, a highly accomplished meditation teacher, spiritual author, broadcaster, and producer of a television series. She has a deep understanding and practice of spiritual knowledge drawn from more than few decades of studying and teaching Raja Yoga meditation. She coordinated the International Communication Center at the Brahma Kumari's headquarters in Mount Abu, India. She coordinated Brahma Kumari centers in the United Nations, in the United States, Germany, and Canada. She travels widely, conducting retreats, seminars, conferences, and giving public lectures. She is naturally creative and has keen ability to translate metaphysical concepts into practical understanding and solutions to daily challenges in these postmodern times. Such an amazing instrument, planting seeds in all four corners, a tireless, dedicated server who is very near and very dear. Welcome, Sister Denise, welcome.
Thank you so much to my dear Sister Shanti and the sisters and brothers of Butuan. It is my great pleasure and honor to have a very close connection with the Philippines since many years. In fact, practically since the beginning, all those years ago. And thinking about the topic today, time for healing, I think it's a good idea to just take a look at time and the times we are living in, first of all, because these are very challenging times, very unusual times. It has become a new normal because we have been for 7 or 8 months, and in some cases more than that, under lockdown, semi-lockdown, behind masks. And there are many of us who know people who have suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic, who have actually passed away as a result of it. And it has changed the life of everyone in the world irrevocably. And because it is a pandemic, we're also thinking about how to heal, how to become immune, how to not get infected or affected, and to manage in the midst of all of this. But behind all that, there are other levels of concern about time and concern about healing. So I think what the COVID-19 pandemic has done for us is to make us very aware of the fragility of life and the ephemeral nature of the world as we knew it. We can no longer say the world as we know it because it keeps on changing, creating uncertainty, instability, and insecurity. And so all of us find ways to talk about this, but we also need to talk about it in ways that carry us forward. So this is what I'd like to do in these few minutes of speaking with you. And I'd like to just zoom out our vision of who we are and where we are, and put us in a historical perspective, because our current situation is very much a product of our history. And what exactly is it that we are healing from? One of the things that's becoming more and more apparent to people is that most people have experienced many kinds of traumas. And these traumas, can I just ask everyone if you could mute your microphones, because I'm hearing a lot of extra sound. So what I'm thinking that we all need to be aware of and to heal from is things that have happened to us from early childhood through growing up and finding ourselves, most of us who are involved in this spiritual practice are adult. Many of us are in our twilight years, and so we have passed through many things. And if you look at the history of the Philippines, everyone in the Philippines has been impacted by the history over the past 400 or 500 years. And then whatever was the Philippines in earlier times is still there. And maybe there are cultural losses that have happened due to colonization and the influence of the Western world, the world of Spain, the world of United States, the introduction of Catholicism, and all of these have had their influence, because external influences on an ancient culture definitely create shifts, and some of those shifts leave scars. So there are deep wounds that are there to be healed. And when we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about the deepest, deepest part of ourselves. And we're also talking about the eternal, the immortal being that each of us is, which we call the soul or the spirit. And in our studies of spirituality and Raj Yoga, we become aware of the continuity of life, the continuity of the spirit, and that we have personally passed through all of these historical events that have impacted us through the historical process, and which we still feel here and now today. So what I'm talking about in terms of healing is to go down deep, deep, deep inside of ourselves. Now you will say, well, we don't remember what our existence was like in periods before this life, and there are many things in this life that we can't remember. But what we can do and what we can touch is the impact of all of this on the soul, where you can still see the effect of it in how we feel about ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, how we contextualize ourselves in our cultural, religious, societal, and familial context. There have been political changes over time, all of which have impacted us, economic changes over time, which have impacted us. And all of these external circumstances leave scars on the soul, which are carried from life to life to life. So healing now, why are we talking about this level of healing at this time? And I think it is because we are passing through very special times. The times are not special only because of COVID-19. They're special for other reasons as well. Another major impact that is going on that has to do with the current times is climate change. Climate change has affected the weather, and the Philippines, being thousands of islands, is exposed to the vagaries of storms and typhoons and hurricanes, and these are intensifying, which means that entire communities can be devastated when one comes through. As I remember Yolanda a few years ago, how much that impacted. And it's also impacted agriculture. It has impacted the economic situation. And so many people have had to seek employment away from their homes, which means it breaks up families. And so there is a healing from the breakup of families due to the children not having access to parents who work far from home, and not being able to develop in the healthiest of ways. When there is an impact on the agriculture, then what you are able to nurture yourself with is impacted. You may not have what you need. There may be many difficulties in life, all of which go to make a person feel less than, or victimized, or that maybe it is my fault that things are not going so well and I have to compensate for that. Now, all of these create some or another kind of survival skills, survival characteristics, which sometimes even become character defects. People feel emotionally fragile, and then all of this becomes covered with a very carefully constructed mask that makes it look like everything is okay. Your behavior is perfect, your dress is perfect, your academic qualifications are exactly as they should be. We create a many-layered mask to show the world that we are fine. And yet there is such a big difference between that soul inside who is trapped in those masks and the external expression that we give, so that we feel okay and everyone around us is assured that they are okay, we are okay, everything is okay. But inside, the heart is stressed, strained, bleeding, and so many things have to be suppressed, because if that inner pain would bleed through the mask, it would not look good. So we become very dedicated to looking good. And when this is the case, then so much energy goes into the protection and maintenance of the mask that we become very often unable to be available for our family, our community, our people, our culture, and at a deepest level, our own selves. So what can spirituality do to help us in this? And does spirituality help us? I think most people have taken a lot of support from religion. Most people have taken a lot of support from religion. And there are also aspects of religion where we have also been sometimes betrayed, sometimes it has failed us, and then our faith in God has to be maintained very deep inside us, and we have to become very detached from other aspects of the religion where it doesn't seem to correspond with our faith. So life has given us a number of challenges that are very difficult to deal with, and you wonder where to really start. So first of all, I would like to look at the comparison and contrast of spirituality and religion. And I think religion in many ways corresponds to the external aspect of our lives, and spirituality to the internal. And because, as I was saying in the last few minutes, there is pain and suffering deep inside, which is well disguised in our external expression. It means that we don't need to make the external expression more sophisticated. We have done a good job with that. But there is a discrepancy between that good external preparation that we have done and then the depth of the inner being, because the inner being is in a way trapped and almost imprisoned in the need to keep the external appearances in order. So how do we look after the inner being while at the same time keeping all the external things in order, but in such a way that it's not a prison, it's not a limitation, and the inner and the outer world are harmonized and balanced with each other, because it is healthy for the inner and the outer world to be in harmony and balance. And of course, the inner world is deep and private and personal. But ideally, there should not be pain, there should not be suffering. So how does that inner world and how does that inner being come into its power and shine and show through the external mask that we've created, like sunbeams that sometimes poke through the clouds and make beautiful rays of light that capture our attention? What the soul needs is strength. And we can go deep inside and find our own strength within. But our problem, I think, is that over time, the soul has become really quite depleted. And our religious orations and practices have not, in most cases, been able to bring us to the fullness of our spiritual fulfillment and integrity that we anticipated and hoped for. And so we need something else. I think what we need is a very close, intimate contact with ourselves as it truly is. We must find ourselves. I think one of the obstacles in finding ourselves has been that we go inside and we find our mask. And we think that the mask of the outside is the same as the inside. And so as much as we go in, we still remain on the surface of the mask, which becomes like a barrier or block that doesn't allow us access to the inner soul. And I think this is because the inner soul is in pain and the conscious mind does not want to go into pain, because that would show through the mask and that would not look good. Yet, it is necessary for us to make contact with the inner self, to make contact with everything that has happened, and the pain, the hardship that has been endured and taken in and taken on, sometimes from very simple, very small things, but which had a big impact, sometimes very big things and leaving big scars. So how do we go inside? This is really the meaning of meditation. Meditation is a word that is really very popular nowadays, and people will meditate in all kinds of ways, but the meditation that is going to help us is an inner journey. We need to travel within and to break open a pathway through our mask and into our heart and into our soul to discover the purity, the beauty, the wonder, the exceptional power that is there, and to connect with it. Can I just ask you to mute your microphones? Thank you. Connecting with the self means what? Our mask, our face, our sense of self is quite physical and material, but the spirit is volatile and subtle. It is the core of our heart, the essence of our being. And in order to make contact with it, we need to be introverted, introspective. But when we become introverted and introspective, we see the outside layer of the soul, and we need to go past that layer as well. This is why it is called a journey, because you're going past layers and layers, almost you can say like an archaeological dig, going down through the ages and through the impacts of life, so that we can arrive at the core. And why do we need to do this is because we need to realize that what we are is so much more wonderful than what we thought. Many feel that at the core, one is born a sinner, and that needs to be atoned for. And somehow there is never really the feeling of getting free from that. And somehow we continue to do actions which betray us, which are against our conscience, which do not correspond with the voice of the heart. And then we feel that we have again amplified that damage to the soul. But when you go deep inside, you find the state of the soul in its original, pure, perfect condition. And the attribute of sin comes much later on. So for the first step or the first leg of the journey is to go deep inside and find that original space. But it is depleted and it is in pain because of all the things that have happened to us. They have happened to us souls. They have happened to the soul, and that soul has carried its scars for a long time and has been gradually getting more and more depleted. And so therefore, we need to have a direct connection with the source. We need to be confident that I am utterly and completely loved by God. And God doesn't look at my shortcomings or my mistakes. God looks at me. Why? So that I can look at me with the same loving, compassionate, and beautiful eyes that God has for me. And that means open the heart, open the mind, open the soul to allow the power of God, the beautiful light of God to enter in and penetrate. It is a surrender of all of our walls, all of our attributes that keep us actually away from God. On one hand, we ask God to sort us out, and on the other hand, we don't want God to come too close because he might see that we're not as we would want him to see us, which of course we are not. But it's rather like when you go to the hospital or the doctor and they say, okay, take off all your clothes, we have to look at you and tell us what's going on, what's the problem. We have to go inside your ears and inside your mouth and down your throat, and in all kinds of invasions are done, which we allow because we want to heal physically. But in order to heal spiritually, we have to open up to God and allow God to go deep inside us, because God's healing touch purifies and heals and restores us to our original beauty. Always remember, if God created me, then he didn't make a mistake. He made me exactly as I should be. And life happens, and things happen that are not our fault. They just happen. And sometimes we don't know quite how to process them in terms of our thinking. And we feel if something happened to me that's not good, then that means I deserve it, which means I'm not good, which means God will not love me. And we develop a faulty logic, which keeps us in a kind of mental and spiritual prison. And so we have to be strong and trusting to just open up that prison, because we do have the key, and let that love and that compassion, that peace, let it in deep. This is meditation, to sit deep with the self and to bring the mind to God and let God touch the soul and really allow that healing to happen. And we must know, we must feel that we are deserving, and we are, we have the right, and everything that is happening for a reason. And it's not for a reason of diminishing me or punishing me. And I remember I was mentioning this to the people in Tacloban when I went there after Yolanda, and they asked me, why did this happen to us? There's so much devastation. And I remembered one of the teachings, which was, it happened to make you strong, and it happened to make you experienced. And to me, this is a very, very profound teaching. And it gives us an angle on all of the things that happen to us in this life, which maybe made us suffer, and which maybe gave us scars, but we are in a way spiritual warriors who have been in battle, and we carry our scars proudly. The scars do not mean that we are bad. They mean that we have had courage, and we have faced and we have experienced many things which are hurtful, damaging. We've been betrayed, we have been diminished, we have been failed by many things, but our heart is strong, our courage is intact, and the feeling of being supported and accompanied by that invisible great superpower that is the being of God, the supreme mother, father, friend, teacher, guide is with us. And so we will get through this, and it makes us more and more able to be the mature, experienced, powerful soul that He always intended us to be. So I would ask you to join with me now for a few minutes of meditation so that we can experience this on a deeper level. And I will put some music so that we can enjoy the feeling, and I think it's coming. Music is used in meditation because of the resonance and vibration that reminds us of what it means to be the soul alone inside this body, the being of light. The point of life. I am the self, the eternal one, the immortal child of the immortal Father. I am the beloved one of the beloved light beyond. Let me touch my heart. Feel my troubled soul. Gently touch my wounds and my scars. And open up. Open myself up to that great light. And let me transcend my limitations. All the limitations that were put on me and that I put on myself. Let me be free to be me. And let me rise above the everyday world. and fly into another dimension, a world of the heart and the mind, where I'm close to my eternal companion, my friend who never fails me, my support and my guide. Let me become so focused in my own light that I fall into that light, into that ocean of light. I am surrounded by that love, that peace. Silently being who I truly am. And gently the healing vibrations touch my wounds, and I become free. I heal. I am restored. And then I return to my everyday state, feeling the company of the Supreme always with me. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, Sister Denise. Thank you very much for that wonderful sharing.
Thank
Now
you.
we'll have our question and answer, and we have here some questions. The first one is from Sister Nancy. Her question is, what can you suggest in a practical manner to cope up with anxiety, depression for the people affected much of the COVID-19 pandemic due to loss of job or even lost their loved ones?
It is something that people are facing all over the world, and it is compounded by the fact that you have to stay home. You cannot be with your loved ones if they are in hospital. If they are at home and you care for them, there is risk of infection. You have to wear masks and gloves, and there is this problem of isolation. And I know, especially in the Philippines, everyone loves to be together, and family is the most important environment to be in. And obviously, it is creating a very strong emotional feeling that is difficult to cope up with. In addition to that, when you turn on the TV, which you have to do because you're at home, so you always are aware about the news and so on. So this compounds it. And therefore, I think we need to really apply some spiritual principles. And one of them is that all this is temporary, it will pass. And I have what I need to get through it. And loss of job makes a person feel very insecure, but we're all in this together and we're helping each other. But we also need to know that as much as we keep ourselves aware that God is with us and be careful not to say, oh God, what have you done? Why did you do this? No, this is not something that's sent by God like a plague or something like that, which you hear in religious circles sometimes. No, God is accompanying us as we pass through this valley of the shadow of death, and hardship and difficulties. We are not being abandoned, we are accompanied, but we also need to do our side, and that is to keep ourselves strong and to encourage others around us to be strong. So anytime the situation in the world is really bad, it actually propels a person to be closer to God, to feel closer to God. And God rewards us enormously for this faith and this courage and this endurance and this patience. So we are being tried and tested, but we must not set aside our strength. And we must also encourage and support each other. Allowing ourselves to give up or go into negative thinking brings with it a big flood of uncertainty and depression, and we have to be careful not to fall down that rabbit hole, because it is a temptation, but it's not something that we need to succumb to. And all this requires great strength. And God says to us, just be aware of your immortality, just be aware of your spiritual value, and know that you are accompanied, and eventually this will pass.
Thank you, Sister Denise. Here's another question, this time from Sister Joy. How will meditation help me get stronger as a person? The inner being you speak of. How will this give me strength to face difficulties?
You see, what happens, why we cannot face difficulties is because we're not strong. And so meditation is an orientation of the self, first of all within, and second of all towards God. If you're not oriented towards God, you're not taking strength. As soon as you orient yourself towards God, you draw power. And we maybe are thinking that God should do it all for us. And he says, okay, but if you do your part and I can do my part much better, I am here for you. Take power from me, take love from me, take support from me, but you have to come to me and take it. So this is the new thing. Otherwise, we always thought, all we have to do is ask and it shall be given. And he's saying, okay, but if you come and take, it's so much easier for me to give it to you, because you're not coming as a beggar, you're coming as my child who has rights. And my relationship with my child is much more deep and intimate than my relationship with someone who is coming to me.
Sige.
Okay, here's another question from the Facebook audience. As a Christian nowadays, going to church is limited. How can I improve my spirituality?
I'm sure that you can find a place in your house or your apartment or your place where you have a symbol, religious symbol, and you can make an altar for yourself. And, you know, it is said the kingdom is within and the church is within, and your relationship to God is within, and you carry it wherever you go. But to make an external expression of that in your place of residence is very helpful, because it reminds you. And also, when you spend time there in meditation and prayer and conversation with God and with the deepest part of yourself, you're generating a vibration and an atmosphere of spirituality there. And it keeps on reflecting back to you. So that should really make a difference if you do this. And God will be noticing you, you know. And when God notices you, you notice God. God is there for you.
Thank you, Sister Denise. Here's another question. Sometimes in this pandemic is a sort of punishment. How can I be healed when I think we are sinners? And even if I pray every day, still the guilt is there. How to be really, really healed?
Well, I think that we need to challenge ourselves and look deep into our hearts and see that, well, we may be in a general way susceptible to sin. But if you look at yourself really honestly, you find that you're not a very bad sinner at all. And you pray every day and you love God and you remember God. So God is not going to look at you as a sinner who needs punishing. God is looking at you as a person in circumstances of adversity who needs his company and his help, and he gives it to us, but we block it by thinking I'm being punished. So we should stop blocking it, because it's not a punishment. It is a circumstance which is just there, like a test, you know. And when you have a test in the school of life, the purpose of the test is to get strong and to get experienced and to pass the test with honors. And so that means have faith, have trust. You're not being punished. It is a dangerous and difficult times that we are passing through. The whole world is passing through. And the whole world is turning to God, that be with us in our hour of need. And this is what he is doing. It's nothing to do with punishment.
Thank you, Sister Denise. I think that's the last question, but I've been wondering, how can we get over of guilty conscience, especially when you commit
Well,
anything from another person or something? Guilty conscience.
but to me, we have to look at it in a very practical way. Everyone has a conscience. And when you are about to do something that is against the voice of conscience, the voice will say, don't do that. And maybe you will feel very strongly and you will do it anyway, and then you will feel guilty. But you don't need to feel guilty long, because it only takes a second of guilty feeling to get the message that, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. I won't do it again. To intensify the guilt, it doesn't have any meaning, because the purpose of a guilty feeling is to remind me and let me know, don't do that. The purpose of guilt is not to just stay and wallow in guilt and make ourselves weak. This is not what God favors. God says, okay, you know you shouldn't do that, so stop doing it and don't do it again, and get on with being a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful soul, and love God and love each other. And let the past be past, and do not cause harm to others, and do not cause harm to yourself either. If you sit in guilt too long, it's going to cause harm to the self, and that's not something that God favors. So we need to really look at this whole question of guilt, you know. Guilt is
Thank you.
not really a real thing.
Thank you, Sister Denise. Here's another question from the audience. Let me read it from the chat box. You mentioned about the outside layer of the soul and the steps of the journey within. Kindly elaborate, what are these layers of the soul?
These layers of the soul are layers of experience over a long, long period of time, which are all with you. You know, when you're born, you come in with a lot of stuff. You come in with qualities and talents and specialities, and you also come in with challenges and weaknesses. And these have all been laid down in former times. And so they're there with us, so we carry them. But there are many things that we can't figure out or understand. We may explain them in a way that satisfies us temporarily, but it doesn't really sort out the problem. And the circumstances of our lives, I think, keep on replicating the test. There are tests. And sometimes a test will be that people disempower you. This happens especially with women. We're in a patriarchal society, and women are very often disempowered in that environment. And today in the United States, the woman judge of the Supreme Court was left the body, and she was remembered as the woman who challenged the laws which were based on discrimination against women. And she challenged it as unconstitutional to discriminate against women in the job market and so on. And so we have to rise up and step up and see that we must be true to ourselves. If we're not true to ourselves, then we will stay in suffering, and we will add to the suffering. If we're true to ourselves, if we're real and we get past all of these limitations, then we see them as artificial creations, and the real is always much more solid than the artificial.
Thank you, Sister. Here's another one from Avin. I'd like to think that I am a forgiving person. Although at times when the memory of a situation comes, I get angry or feel sad. How do I work towards forgetting in the saying, forgetting is the saying in the same forgive and forget?
Well, I don't use that saying, forgive and forget, because if you think deeply about forgiveness, forgiveness means that your debt is cancelled, and that is done by God. And you atone for your sins, you settle your debts and you pay. And it doesn't mean that we have to take retribution to other people and take the law into our own hands, but we do have to understand that the relationship between the sinner and his or her sin is between that person and God, and that person and the person they did damage to. And so they need to make amends. Ask for forgiveness is okay, but make amends is better. And when you remember something somebody did against you, it's not really up to you to forgive them, because if they haven't made amends, then the debt is not settled. But what you can do is let go and move on. And this is what I do. I don't think about forgiving a person because it's not quite clear what that means, but letting it go and moving on and not holding on to it is practical. And you can actually do that. And it's more manageable to tell yourself, okay, let go, get beyond it, move forward in your life, and let the past be the past. That is a very practical way to handle it.
Okay, here's another question, sister. I think she's a sister also, from Sister Ami. If the first step of the journey is to go within, as we meditate during Amrit Vela, what are the other steps?
I think when you're meditating in a serious way and you're practicing Raj Yoga, it's very important in the early morning meditation to prepare yourself the night before and to give yourself a theme that you're going to think about, because meditation also means thinking deeply about what is worth thinking about. So you need to think deeply about yourself, who you are, and what you stand for, and what is your essence, and remind yourself. And you also need to think about your relationship with God, and who is God and what is God for you. And are you experiencing a building of a deep relationship? Do you communicate with God? Are you communing with God? Do you think about the different characteristics of God so that you can understand God better? Do you sit and open yourself to receive God's blessings and love and power? So meditation is very dynamic. It's a two-way traffic. Sometimes you want to go deep in silence and just open yourself up, and you receive good feelings and inspirations from God also. Sometimes answers to your questions and new perspectives on your challenges. So the early morning meditation is the deepest, and it is also the one where all your monsters from deep within come out and attack you. And so that is not something to be afraid of. That is a time to see, okay, what are these things that are inside me gnawing away at my soul? Because I need to see them. I need to get them to come up and come out so that I can deal with them. Because if I let them go sit there deep in the depths of my subconscious, then I am not in control of what's going on. So the early morning meditation is a time when all this stuff can erupt, and then you deal with it consciously, because you can't deal with something when it's subconscious. So this is the progressive way of meditating over many years, you know.
Thank you, sister. Here's a follow-up question regarding the forgive and forget. If I can't forget the mistake made against me, does it mean that I am not able to forgive?
Well, yes, definitely. And I think it's not really about, it's not that you have to forget it, because you're not going to forget it. but you have to let it go. And whenever it comes up, let it go again, because you're holding on to it. And the only way to let go of something you're holding on to is to repeatedly let go. And I think this word forgive and forget creates trouble because it keeps us tied up to the problem. But if you say to yourself, okay, it happened, I'm still alive, I got through it, now let go, you know, because holding on to it is the problem.
Yeah. Here's another question. For spirituality healing, for spiritual healing to take place, is it necessary to be aware of our past experiences and how they have affected us, or meditation and connection with God will do the healing naturally?
You have to do many things. Meditation and connection with God does a lot. Being aware of what happened to you in the past is important, because you also have to let that go. Because if you're holding on to it or you're unaware of it, then it becomes a barrier which stops God from doing his healing work. So that is needed. And you also need to see how your bad experiences have created character defects, which you don't really want to hold on to either. And so a deep personal inventory is very useful. So knowing what's happening in the self is really important. And then putting it in front of God and letting it go, let it be a sacrifice, an offering, and then move on. This is good.
Here's a question, another question. Is the COVID-19 pandemic part of the climate change problems? What are your thoughts?
To me, it has no connection with climate change problems. It's, you know, the research that has been done indicates that it's a designer virus. And so that's a man-made thing. And we just have to get through it, and we are getting through it, and we have to make ourselves resilient. You know, in the Philippines, there are so many healing fruits and herbs and leaves and plants, and we can use all this because we are stronger than any little virus that comes along. You know, computers get attacked by viruses, and we look after that, so we can also look after this one. And the computer virus is nothing to do with climate change, it's to do with people who put them out, you know. And this is the world is full of different kinds of adversity that somebody initiated or some group initiated, or whatever. It doesn't really matter who's responsible. What matters is, how am I responding to it? How am I fortifying myself? How am I keeping my mind and heart pure and clean? Because the virus is not going to attack something that's clean and pure. And if we're vigilant and following the rules that are laid out for not picking up an airborne infection, you know, keep your lungs strong, keep your heart strong, keep your mind strong, because if your mind is strong, your body will benefit from that. It's like prevention.
Here's question. Please share to us. Somebody is asking for important tips to meditation, sister.
Tips for meditation. Well, if you see, there are many Brahma Kumari's websites where there are meditations offered, guided meditations, and that's really very helpful. But to me, the simplest is to understand that it's a two-step process. And the first step is to go within. and just be with the self and make contact with your own personal power and purity. And then second step, turn your mind to God and just open and commune with God, talk to God, and develop that relationship. Need a lot of faith in the self. That's a big step. Do not doubt your value.
Thank you very much, sister. I think that ends our question and answer. Here's the last one. May I read it to you? Here's another one. This will be the last question. If we are no longer bothered by external negative circumstances, and we don't feel bad anymore about people who hurt us, or we don't get hurt anymore, does that mean we are free?
Oh, that's a very good kind of freedom. Yeah, very good. Because that's what we want, isn't it? We want to be free. We want to be ourselves. We want to be authentic, real, free, and shine. And that's it.
Yes. So I think that will be the last question for this afternoon's question and answer. May we ask our participants to put on their video cam so that Sister Denise can see our beautiful faces, beautiful and handsome faces from the gallery there. Please put on your video cam. Is it? Yeah, there.
Beautiful.
Faces. Sister Nancy is not on. Yeah, and there.
So nice. So lovely to see all of you. And
we
we're
have
at
also
ends of the planet and still we can be together. Is so nice.
Yeah.
Yes. We had a nice time when we were here in the Philippines. We went to Samal Island. Yes, true.
I remember. Yeah.
Yes. So for that, I think in this juncture, for the acknowledgement, may I call in Balangay Butuan Study Place, Sister Joy.
Thank you, Sister Denise.
Thank you so much.
You, the Brahma Kumaris Butuan family gives you our heartfelt gratitude. Thank you for accepting our invitation as the resource speaker in today's program, Time for Healing. It was a great afternoon, right, people?
Yes.
It really is a learning
Really agree.
experience. This program ends now, but the positive thoughts we shared with BK, Sister Denise, continue. Yes, this is the first time in the new platform for the new normal platform for BK Botuan, but definitely this is not the last. To everyone, we are grateful that you have joined us. Thank you for sharing your time. We are looking forward to seeing you again in the next service program. So keep the connection. To those who have posed questions, thank you for your active participation. We also wish to give special thanks to Sister Shanti of the Peace Villa Tagum Davao, the BK Mindanao Coordinator, for her invaluable support. And to Brahma Kumaris, Quezon City, Sister Rose and Sister Maggie, thank you for being our hosts in this Zoom platform. We could not have done otherwise on our own. For BK Philippines, spread throughout the country, thank you, brothers and sisters, for being there, for being here, and for the continuing support. sa Zoom and FB. Finally, before saying goodbye, we would like to invite everyone to view and like our Facebook page, Balangay Butuan Study Place. Again, Balangay Butuan Study Place. Thank you, everyone. A very happy weekend and Om Shanti.
Shanti.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Om Shanti.
Sister Denise, thank you.
Lots of love to everyone. Om Shanti.
Bye-bye, sister. Shanti. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Good night to
Om
Sister
Shanti,
Denise.
Sister Denise.
Good
Om
night for
Shanti.
Sister Denise.
Good morning.
Night. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Picture na ba? Nag-picture na?
Wala ka picture si Joy siguro. Wala ka picture sa gallery view.